Good morning, YouTube. It's February 28th, 2021, coming at you from F-150 Studios in beautiful Starbucks, California. And I'm talking today on this last day of Black History Month to say that Black History Month this year and every year is proudly sponsored by Western civilization. Now, um, this this video's been overtaken a little bit by events as it turns out that Amazon has pulled a documentary about Clarence Thomas from its Prime service. And the Smithsonian, there was an effort to kick Clarence Thomas out of their exhibit on African Americans. Both my mother and my paternal grandfather are featured in that particular exhibit. But if you don't think the right way, well, of course, um, Beijing Biden revoked everyone's black card before the election who didn't vote for him, and probably Clarence Thomas didn't vote for him. I know I didn't, so I'm no longer black, I guess. But that aside, there is this denunciation of whiteness uh, cannot stand side by side with Black History Month because the accomplishments that are rightly celebrated during Black History Month would not take place outside of the context of Western civilization. It's they wouldn't be possible for the most part. If you take a look at the French writer Alexandre Dumas, his father was a French military officer and his mother was a black woman. Dumas, of course, wrote The Three Musketeers, The Count of Monte Cristo, The Man in the Iron Mask, becoming one of the most celebrated writers in French and translated into English, and movies made from his books. And but where does that happen outside the context of Western civilization? Alexandre Dumas could not have written The Three Musketeers outside of France. It's impossible. So, and if you look at the other accomplishments, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, Dr. Charles Drew, uh, both renowned medical personnel. Dr. Williams performed the second successful open heart surgery in the United States in the 19th century, and the first involving multiple bypasses, or sort of. Dr. Charles Drew developed a way to preserve blood plasma for transfusions. Uh, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Hank Aaron, the list goes on and on. But all these people were products of Western civilization. None of these accomplishments take place anywhere else, people. Take a look. Um, if Western civilization had not stood against Islamic aggression, launching the First Crusade and later standing against Islamic invasions of Europe at Tours and at Vienna twice, the world would be a very different place. None of this science and political philosophy, rights of the individual, consensual marriage, that was Catholics in the 12th century, um, the Magna Carta, presumption of innocence, not being tortured, abolition of slavery. None of that happens outside the context of Western civilization. None of it. The African slave trade into the Arab world lasted 4 times as long as the African slave trade to the West. You don't see Black History Month in the Arab world. You don't see the celebrations of their black people celebrated because they don't have any. Eunuchs were highly valued, but Islam forbids castration. So the African captors, remember, we was Kangs. No, no, you were the losers in some one of the interminable bouts of petty tribal warfare. that still continue through parts of the continent to this day. But so the Africans would castrate the boys. By the way, what anesthetic, what antiseptic, and those who survived would then be sold. The girls who were used as household help and sex slaves, if they got pregnant, the babies were killed. So, no, you don't see Black History Month in Saudi Arabia. In Egypt, the last eunuch sold into slavery in Egypt told his story in the early to mid 1970s, probably pretty close to the time the last Black American born into slavery, the last day of slavery in the United States, died. Um, and that Egyptian eunuch was not as old. The British actor Jonathan Rhys Meyers recounts his father being a diplomat in Africa after the Second World War, and he took young Jonathan down to the port at Mombasa, and there were ships heading east, and his father pointed to them and told his son, "Do you see those ships? Those are slavers. One day you will have to fight those people." The man-eating lions of Tsavo, dramatized in the Michael Douglas, Val Kilmer movie, The Ghost in the Darkness. Growing up in Chicago, I've seen those carcasses mounted at the Field Museum of Natural History. Kind of cool. But there's a theory that they developed their taste for human flesh through more than a millennium of the African slave trade being driven to the ports from the interior to the ports at Mombasa to be sold into slavery in the Arab world. And those slaves who were too weak or dead to carry on were cut out of the chain and just left by the roadside. And over, again, the course of 1,200 years or so, the Africans, the lions in that region, came to equate humans with an easy meal. So that may have accounted for the development of man eaters in that region of the world. So if you want to celebrate Black History Month, absolutely go ahead. The accomplishments, tremendous. But again, remember, they don't take place outside the context of Western civilization. Oh, but the Islamic teaching, yeah, Islam rejected teaching in the 12th century. Yes, for 300 years, the intellectual center of the universe was Baghdad, uh, but that ended. Any belief in natural law and everything became inshallah, God willing. So if you fire an arrow into the air and it lands on the ground, it's God willing. If you fire 12 arrows into the air and they all hit the ground, it's God willing. If you and 273 of your buddies go out and fire arrows into the air and they all hit the ground, it's God willing. Um, you can't develop scientifically like that. You can't develop intellectually when thoughts are suppressed. And of course, this is a battle that's been fought in Western civilization too, but the battles have been fought. They have not taken place in these other civilizations. Western civilization, really kind of begins with the judicial murders of two men, Socrates and Jesus of Nazareth. And it develops from there, again, with the First Crusade and resistance to Islamic aggression, internal battles within the Western world, many of them frequently bloody, hideously ugly in terms of atrocities and destruction of life and property, but resolving. And they continue to resolve and evolve. And if we don't stand for it, we stand to lose everything. And that's more than I'm willing to give up without a fight. This has been a long one. Everybody have a good day. And I'm going to go take my amateur radio license exam this morning. Again, not possible without Western civilization. And oh, yeah, Bill Gates. You can't pass. You need to know a certain amount of math to be a radio operator. So um, there we go. So you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.